I'm going to talk about something very specific today that is a unique thing to Wondaland, which is what we call our brand Bible. So our brand Bible is built on 6 basic sections. So number 1, cover page and first photo. I can't stress it to you how important it is to make sure that the first thing that people see is a clear and accurate reflection of what you want them to think about the entire time. Do not waste a word, a page, or a logo on anything that does not speak directly to what you're trying to communicate. Number 2, artist's core ideology. Now, some of this sounds a little academic maybe, but what we found was that as you were going through the creative process and you started going into thinking about videos, thinking about styling, thinking about your album cover, etc., it was very helpful for the team and all of your partners to understand exactly why you were doing what you were doing, why you were saying what you were saying, and what things were and were not important to you. Number 3, album mood board. It is your responsibility as the artist to clearly outline the visual, conceptual, and sonic landscape of the project that you're putting together. Nobody else is gonna do it. Nobody's just gonna hear your music and rub their magic genie and say, this is what I think it should look like. You have to do that work with you and your intimate team in order to put that together. Number 4, style mood boards, pretty specific, speaks for itself. Number 5, brand partner targets. You should be thinking about, before you roll out your project, the types of people you want to work with, both large and small, people in your local community and people all the way up at the top like Spotify, and then finally, closing page. So I'm going to use Jadena because we just put music out on Friday and we keeping it funky with the brand. So the pictures and words that you use help define how people see and receive your music. This is the first image that you see in Jadena's brand deck back in the Classic Man era, and in the new era, the 85 to Africa. If we would've came back in with the album that he's made, 85 to Africa, and he still looked like this, it wouldn't connect for our partners. And so we had to make sure that our visual brand looked like, felt like, tasted like, smelled like the music that we were trying to put forward. Second, core ideology. Your social narrative serves as the foundation for your artistic vision and mission. Again, these are pillars that you will share with your team, with your partners, with your label partners, with radio stations, to let them know the things that are important to you. So for Jadena, on his first album, it was classic, chief, romance, swank. You have Jadena's vision of classic, and everything that you see here is intentional, right? So first you see bandana Tupac, then you see suited Tupac, because Jadena was trying to get across, especially after Classic Man, that his personality, his emotional bandwidth was much larger than just a guy in a suit with slick back hair. And so this was an intentional thing to show these both sides because he wanted to grow and develop into those sides. The next piece of it are album goals. We think it's very important, again, for yourself and for other people on your team to understand what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to be on the radio, you gotta think about it in a very specific way. If you're trying to tour heavy, you gotta think about your music in a very specific way. If you just wanna be a local star, all these things impact not only the music that you put out, but how you put the music out and the partners that you choose. And so for Jadena, he has 2 separate album goals going back to Classic Man and to now. So the first one was Rule the Summer, again, establish swank, establish the chief archetype, and redefine the visual album. And the important thing about this is none of these things are on accident, and I'll focus on Rule the Summer and redefine the visual album. These things were things that we put in from a goal perspective specifically because we were going into our partner Epic at the time, and we wanted to make sure that they knew that we expected them to invest the money to rule the summer, which meant radio, which meant videos, which meant being on the BET Awards, which meant going on Jimmy Kimmel, and that we expected them to invest in music videos through redefining the visual album, right? So those are very intentional, and the ones in the middle were kind of his own personal creative goals. If you go into this album, 85 to Africa, it humanizes Jadena, a chief within the neighborhood, icon of progressive masculinity, and the bridge between the African diaspora and the African continent. So there is some crossover, right? Because you see, we started seeding the African piece here, even in the design, but it wasn't an explicit goal in the first album. It's an explicit goal now, so it goes back to the album title, right? It goes back to the sounds you hear on the music, which is both 85 and Africa, and it goes back to the story on why he named it that. And so you have the same guy who has 2 very distinct goals, and with these goals, we can guide our partners in very specific ways that help us get to our larger goals. The next one is the album vision board. This expresses the album's tone, concepts, looks, and feel, right? And so here you have the album title, pretty self-explanatory, album log line, 2 to 3 sentences describing the collection, sound description, before anybody hears it, what does it sound like? Color palette, again, when we think about shooting videos, what clothes you're wearing when you go out, your styling. Everybody at Wondaland has a very specific color palette. Janelle was in black and white for years. That was not on accident. And that meant that when we rolled with her, we had on black and white. That means when we did a CoverGirl deal, they shot her in black and white, and the only thing she did was put on a pop of red lip, but it was something that communicated very clearly how you're supposed to engage with us and how we're gonna engage with you. Visual references, focus tracks. This is important because oftentimes you'll go in, especially working with partners, and they will have their own ideas about what music you should be putting out. It's very important that as you go into your conversation, that you're very clear based on everything that you've put together, what music you want to put out and why. Video log lines, again, it's very important that you start to think about this and don't get caught off guard. Don't just go play the music and then like, all right, let's go. We need to shoot a video in 3 weeks, and you haven't thought about what it is that you want to say in that video. And then finally, artist community. So as you go into these spaces, depending on the type of music you make or the type of music that people hear when they hear your music, they will start to define you and start to put you in specific playlists, specific genres, specific boxes. It's very important for you to come in prepared to show who your community is. So if that ranges from Bob Dylan to Lil Uzi Vert, you should be telling that to them on the front end so that when you start to have ideas that engage both of those audience, it doesn't catch them off guard. So for Jadena, you see this photo. He actually is standing on the freeway. Very dangerous. I wasn't there, or else I probably wouldn't have let it go. But it's a clear articulation of what he's trying to do. Second, 85 to Africa is the soundtrack to a global Black culture without borders. And here, the pictures that are chosen are intentional. This is supposed to express to you what that core audience looks like, who he's communicating to, what his tribe is. Number 3, the beauty, trials, and common bond of people of African descent across the African diaspora and continent. The next, you see the sound described, you see his focus tracks. But again, when you look at the visuals behind all these things, this is a constant reminder of the world that we're trying to bring you into. It's not just a Black background, it's not just a random picture. We got Jadena with his shirt off because we're trying to sell sex this time. He's been working out, he deserves it. You deserve it too. So we put that all together because we wanted to make sure that when we walked in with this new identity, this evolved identity, this other piece of Jadena, that we had as many visual cues in order so that they got it, right? And if you start to take out any of those pieces and we hadn't present that, we would have been in a world of hurt because we would have came out and all the marketing ideas would have been based on Classic Man. So when we came in with the brand deck, we came in with the finished music, and we came in with this video, and that was a presentation to Sylvia Rohn and her team to start off the 85 to Africa campaign. Thank you. So I'll take a few or several questions right now.
My question really is, today's market seems to be stemming a lot around singles. And while a lot of us artists put heart and soul into album creations and the whole length of what it takes to make an album, how do you best be succinct in your approach with visuals when you're talking about a single? Or how does it differ?
You actually don't know what's gonna spark it off. So you should make the music that you love. You should put it out in the way that you wanna put it out. And it could be one Instagram post because somebody liked the way you look and they have a bunch of followers, or it could be a radio programmer that really loved the song, or it could be somebody at Spotify who puts it on the right playlist. So you should make the shit that you want, put it out in the way that you want. And as far as approaching visuals, again, it goes back to your core ideology. How important is that to you? And again, they don't have to be expensive. On Jadena's last album, we made a bunch of 1-minute clips for 7 songs to just give you a quick view into it because we didn't have the money to make full videos for it. So I would say, again, you have to just sit with yourself and really decide what your presentation is going to be.
Appreciate you for everything. Jay Rose, I'm an entertainment lawyer based out here in Atlanta. You mentioned the word team a lot when you were talking. So I guess my question is, how does an artist go about picking the right members on their team to be able to implement some of the things that you mentioned during your presentation?
The biggest mistake that I think that people make when building their team is they go out looking for it. And what I found is that the people who got the dopest teams are the people who are right around, like, who's the dude who wants to be a lawyer? Who's the graphic designer? Who's the videographer? Who's the photographer? Who wants to be an audio engineer? And you link up with those people at the beginning of your career and build with them, then you guys all have buy-in in the conversation. And so my biggest advice would be, don't go looking out in the world. Look at the people who want to do that work with you right away and start building with them. And you may think your music is super dope. They may think their visuals are super dope, but you guys both got work to do. So give each other that grace.